Here's your wrestling news for January 26, 2023. And we're kicking off today with the Royal Rumble, as this weekend's show will be an exciting start on the road to WrestleMania 39. With the two Rumble matches, there's a lot of predictions as to what'll happen in the Alamo Dome, but one prediction has got a lot of attention. When the official WWE on BT Sport account gave 5 wild predictions, they included ideas such as Brock Lesnar dominating from the number 1 spot and the possibility of Jay White making his WWE debut. The most interesting prediction, however, is when the account suggested that The Rock could return in the Men's Rumble match and win the 30-man bout, setting him on a path to WrestleMania against his cousin Roman Reigns. On Twitter, fans reacted to these predictions, with one fan pleading for The Rock to appear this weekend, while another speculated whether the BT Sport account had just spoiled these surprises. While there's been no shortage of talk about The Rock returning, the fact that this is the official WWE on BT Sport account, one that is part of WWE, saying he could come back this weekend, is very telling. At this very moment, there is an absolute power struggle prevailing in WWE with the return of its founder, owner, and majority shareholder, Vince McMahon. McMahon's shocking return, less than 6 months after his retirement, has made a drastic impact on both management and certain working areas around the company, but there has been moves to limit his power. Recently, McMahon settled a lawsuit with former female WWE referee Rita Chatterton, but now the billionaire is set to face more litigation. Investors for WWE are leading the main litigation over the chairman and are concerned about McMahon rescinding certain bylaws in an attempt to gain complete control over all decisions. This plot by McMahon would mean that the WWE's board of directors would have even less power than they have now if the majority shareholder McMahon gets his way. It was confirmed this week that there are 3 groups of shareholders suing McMahon, which includes a pension fund that have claimed that McMahon's methods used in his comeback are a violation of the law. In a suit filed in Delaware's Chancery Court, it is argued that McMahon's comeback was done to force his way into the negotiations for WWE media rights and threatening to withhold any support for a deal with his involvement. The police and fire retirement system of the city of Detroit are also challenging McMahon's decision to rewrite company bylaws in his own favor, and a third shareholder went even further, involving McMahon's history of sexual assault allegations. According to Bloomberg, WWE shareholders Carol Casale and Crystal Laval are suing over McMahon's alleged history of paying to cover up sexual harassment accusations and want their lawsuit kept separate from the 2 previously known filed lawsuits against McMahon and WWE. So far, McMahon hasn't had to appear in court, but we do know that another investor is seeking to prove whether the bylaw claims are correct in an attempt to take credit for the reform and gain a mootness fee in recognition to foil McMahon's plans. In a court filing on Monday, those filing that claim said that the consolidated litigation is narrow in scope, it is moot, and the only remaining litigation in this action should concern the application for a fee award. They added, the other group of investors, meanwhile, those suing over McMahon's alleged history of paying to cover up sexual harassment actions, are seeking to sever their case from the consolidated action. That could keep the bylaw-related claims alive, interfering with any fee request. The pension fund and its co-plaintiff, investor Scott Fellows, are represented by Labaton Succaro LLP, Friedlander and Goris PA, Freeman Oster and Tejsel PLLC, and Kiskella Law PLLC. The investors seeking to proceed separately, Carol Casale and Crystal Laval, are represented by Christensen and Doherty LLP and Scott Attorneys at Law LLP. This case is in regards World Wrestling Entertainment Inc. Stockholders Litigation, Delaware, Chancery, number 2003-0022, motion to dismiss as moot, filed 1/23/23. Despite retiring under half a year ago, Vince McMahon has arguably more power in WWE than ever before, and while these lawsuits continue to pile up on his desk, it seems that nothing will deter the billionaire chairman in his efforts to sell WWE. Last Tuesday, the wrestling world lost Jay Briscoe, who died in a car accident mere minutes from his home in Laurel, Delaware. Due to controversial comments in his past, Warner Bros. Discovery did not allow Jay to compete on AEW programming during his life, but last night's Dynamite was an emotional tribute show to the late wrestler. During Dynamite, AEW paid tribute to Jay with a vignette which showcased his wrestling as well as his personal life. Jay's brother Mark, who was also banned by WBD during Jay's life, also made his AEW debut last night, competing against his late brother's former rival Jay Lethal in the main event of the show. The incredibly emotional match saw the two do all they could in memory of Jay Briscoe, and Tony Khan has said that the match was requested specifically by Mark and Lethal. When AEW shared that previously mentioned video tribute on Twitter, WWE's Sami Zayn retweeted the clip, saying that he was in tears watching about Jay Briscoe. Jay Briscoe will sadly never step foot in the ring again, but his memory lives on in both wrestling and in the lives of those he met, and the wrestling world will never forget the life and legacy of the former ROH World Champion. Unfortunately, Jay wasn't the only person killed in the tragic accident last week, as the driver of the other vehicle also lost her life in the tragic collision. After the accident, Delaware State Police confirmed that another driver crossed the center line and collided with his vehicle head-on. The police are currently investigating the incident. The driver of the other car was named Lillian Turnahan, who also lost her life in the tragic accident, and her family haven't received the same kind of warmth and support from fans as Briscoe. The organizer of the Pew family donation page, Josh Wharton, recently addressed the nasty attacks Turnahan's family has been getting as he condemned the attacks. "It's been a tough week for our community, but also has been heartwarming to see the outpouring of love towards the Pew family during this tragedy. Once again, Jamin touched so many lives across the world, and that has been evident by the daily tributes, comments, and love we've all witnessed. The girls are still progressing as God continues to hear all of our prayers. Unfortunately, this has not been the case for the other family, as there have been numerous rumors and information out there which has led to attacking or degrading comments on social media that the family has seen. Our children will read these at some point. Jamin, Ashley, the Pew family, myself, and Casey do not stand for this. In a time of tragedy, pointing fingers does not reverse what has been done. The driver of the other vehicle has 2 young children, and we all should be showing the same love and compassion for them as we have done for the Pews. Be reminded that their world has also been turned upside down undeservingly, and there is a huge hole left in their family. I'm sincerely asking that everyone stop with the negative comments and feelings towards them. Let me remind all of you that none of us, and I know myself better than anyone, have things we are not proud of. We all struggle with something. To judge an entire life by the outcome of this tragedy is not who we are. Only love can conquer hate. Instead of expressing harsh feelings, pray for them." The Delaware News-Journal reports that Jay Briscoe will be laid to rest this weekend, and his funeral will be held on Sunday, January 29th at the Laurel High School Gym in Laurel, Delaware. Visitations will begin at 12 p.m., followed by a ceremony at 1 p.m., and then a private burial. The wrestling world is in mourning, but that is no excuse to lash out at the Turnahan family, who are also mourning the loss of a family member. And we're sending our best to both families of the victims of this crash at this awful time. Stories of professional wrestlers breaking the law are well known throughout the history. Steve Cox was arrested earlier this week and charged with 2 counts of assault with a dangerous weapon and 1 charge of threatening a violent act. For those who don't know, Steve Cox held the World Class Championship Wrestling Tag Team Championship with Michael Hayes and competed in numerous companies during his career, including Mid-South, WCCW, the Global Wrestling Federation, and Japan's UWFI. Now he's facing a much darker time ahead of him. Steve Cox, who last wrestled in 2006, has had several incidents in recent months in the Tulsa area. News on 6 Lori Fulbright reported about the incident leading to his eventual arrest. On May 18, 2022, Cox, 63, was arrested for leering at kids in a park. When a woman confronted him, the police affidavit states that Cox told a child, "I'll see you later," and walked off. The woman followed him to get his car's information, at which point he pulled out a knife and threatened her. That incident led to one of the assault with a dangerous weapon charges and is still pending. On April 30th, 2022, a man, later identified during a photo lineup as Cox, was accused of screaming and flipping off 2 cousins who were walking their dogs. When they responded back to him, he allegedly accelerated and swerved at them like he was going to hit them and came very close. One of the cousins stated that the driver got out of his car with a knife, lunged at them, and threatened to kill them and their dogs, and then drove off. On October 21st last year, one of those cousins was with his mother when Cox allegedly approached them and threatened to gut them like a fish. After getting a description, police put a photo lineup, and the victims identified Cox as the person who was responsible for the incidents. This led to the 2nd count of assault with a dangerous weapon and the charge of threatening a violent act. Fulbright's report also stated that Cox had also been accused of following a teenage girl home and had been reported for driving through neighborhoods and cussing at random people and watching kids play at a park and watching kids get off a school bus, but nothing that could warrant an arrest. For over 3 decades, Chris Jericho has wowed fans with his skills in the ring and has held gold in WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor, ECW, WCW, to name just a few companies. Even to this day, Jericho can be found regularly competing on AEW programming, but the former world champion does have a plan for his retirement. Speaking on WTF with Mark Marone, Jericho did not have a specific date for when he plans to retire, but knows deep down when it'll be the right time to hang up his boots. People say, well, how much longer are you going to do this? I could end tomorrow. I could end 5 years from now, or who knows? Sting is 63 and still doing great stuff, so who knows, man? To me, as long as you can still compete at a high level, I have a high standard for myself. If I went out there and 2, 3, 4 times in a row I felt like, oof, I'm starting to fucking phone this in, I would quit. Part of Jericho's appeal over the years has been his ability to reinvent himself from a smiling babyface to a serious heel to what we're now seeing in AEW. Jericho has no plans to retire anytime soon, but will do so if he feels like he's phoning it in. But with how well Y2J has done in AEW so far, his retirement is likely many years away. Over the past year, the backstage landscape of WWE has changed dramatically, with retirements, resignations, and returns all making for one chaotic scene. Despite Stephanie McMahon's assurance that nothing would change is the only thing that's been guaranteed, and now we have some clarity about one portion of the promotion. On Twitter, Steve Carrier of Ringside News said that the WWE creative process has changed, but don't worry, it's not marking the return of Vince McMahon as head of creative. Instead, Carrier writes that on the run sheets, the writer listed does not write a script, but they instead let Triple H know what's happening, what's been said by who, and when they'll be saying it. This is a much more relaxed role considering the word-for-word promos of McMahon's era as creative head, and it was added that Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman have full control over their own segments, just like John Cena has done and how Brock has done with Heyman in the past. Producers are also different than originally believed, as they are responsible for notifying the truck of what is happening so that the camera team get the best angles and shots, as well as their traditional role of putting together matches with talent. WWE has a whole team working backstage at every Raw, NXT, SmackDown, and live event, all to put on a show for the fans. And while there's changes going on in WWE, the company will always need these writers and producers. Over to Raw, as this week was the Red Brand's 30th anniversary, and it was fitting that DX, who spent years running roughshod on the Red Brand, made an appearance. Not only did the segment include Kurt Angle joining DX, but it also saw the imposing Imperium make their presence felt, but one man in the ring needed some pointers from Triple H. When Imperium were confronted by Seth Rollins and the Street Profits, Teddy Long came out and did his signature dance, but eagle-eyed fans may have noticed Triple H whisper something to HBK. It turns out that Triple H could be heard saying, an instruction Michaels followed once Long had finished his dance. Seconds later, Michaels could be seen getting into a position to face the hard cam in a moment caught on camera by WWE's production team. Michaels was on the very first episode of Raw and has appeared on countless episodes over the decades, but on this occasion, the Heartbreak Kid needed to be reminded where to stand in the ring. After this segment, fans got to see a 6-man tag pitting Imperium against the Street Profits and Seth Rollins, but there was an injury scare for one of the men in the ring. After Giovanni Vinci was seen grabbing his knee, fans were worried that he'd been injured, but according to Fightful Select, Vinci is okay and did not suffer any kind of injury. Giovanni Vinci returned to Imperium at Clash at the Castle last September, and the group is best when they are united, and we're glad that Vinci won't be missing any time after this injury scare. For decades, WWE has famously not played well with others, though that stance did slightly soften over the past year. 2022 saw Impact Wrestling's Mickie James enter the Women's Rumble match, and WWE allowed Carl Anderson to compete at Wrestle Kingdom earlier this month, and could an even bigger WWE crossover be in the works? Last year, Kazuchika Okada said that he is hoping on a Wrestling World Cup and hopes to speak to Triple H and Tony Khan about the idea. We don't know what the game thinks of that, but when Tony Khan was asked on the Battleground podcast, the AEW president was all for the idea. I've got experience working with different promotions and promoting angles, matches, and storylines across different companies. It can be challenging, but we came together with New Japan Pro Wrestling to put on, I think, the best pay-per-view of the year last year, Forbidden Door. There are challenges to putting on an event like that and getting the matches set, but it's certainly something I would be open to. I'm open to working with anyone in pro wrestling. You never know. A Wrestling World Cup would be incredible, but would feel incomplete without WWE, the biggest promotion in the world, and what crossover matches would you want to see at such an event? Over to Impact Wrestling now, as the company is home to quite the impressive roster and has now picked up a former NXT Tag Team Champion. After debuting for Impact in February 2022 and returning last November, it's been confirmed that Big Con is now under a multi-year contract with the company. Fans will know Big Con best as Connor of the Ascension during his tenure in NXT and on the main roster, and as part of the Violent by Design stable, expect to see plenty of Big Con on Impact Wrestling. And we're ending with WWE Hall of Famer Billy Graham, who has been dealing with some severe health issues in recent years. Most recently, Graham was hospitalized over a severe bone infection, but there's been some very good news about his status. On Facebook, Graham's wife provided an update on his condition, saying he will soon be moved out of hospital and into a skilled nursing facility. She added that the legend will continue on IV antibiotics for some time, possibly 6 months, and thanked everyone who has supported the Hall of Famer at this time. Billy Graham had previously been in the ICU, but was moved out after a brief stay there, and afterward, it was revealed that his kidneys were functional. Graham has had a history of health issues over the years, which includes Graham being hospitalized numerous times due to numerous health issues. His fans have continuously provided him with support no matter what. Billy Graham was a pioneer of his time, and his larger-than-life wrestling character would earn him the nickname as the original superstar, and we're wishing him a speedy recovery.